Hi, welcome to Light Camera Author. I'm Jim Junot, your host, and this is a show where we talk with writers who bring Hollywood history to life. And today's episode features an epic true story of soulmates, songs, and serendipity, spanning continents, generations, and the soundtrack of a lifetime. What if the Beatles didn't just change music, but they changed your destiny? Gary Morrison grew up in post-war Yorkshire in the shadow of the steelworks and transistor radios. Valerie Collins was raised in a Polish-American household on the edge of Chicago, where bedtime stories were crafted by her enigmatic father, who may have been a Cold War spy. They never met as children, yet from opposite sides of the Atlantic, they both felt the magnetic pull of a band consisting of John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr. They have a new book called Shadows of the Beatles, and it is a dual-voiced memoir told with cinematic detail, emotional resonance, and a deep love for music. And they join us now on Light Camera Author. Welcome, Gary and Valerie Morrison.
Hi, Jim.
Hey, Jim.
Nice of you to have us.
So thankful you have us on your show.
Oh, thank you for being here. So, Shadows of the Beatles. This is the story of it's the story of how you two found each other, isn't it?
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah,
So,
that's what we started. We've always loved books and writing.
I'm a big book reader.
Right. And we said, well, we should write a story about how we met one day, because what we went through and everything was sometimes a little unbearable, the weight and all this sort of thing. But we then started saying, oh, well, let's go back and think about our lives as well. And we both realized because we're both only children, and we both realized that we'd had quite interesting childhoods, even though we thought we didn't.
No, actually, when we started writing things down, it was like, wow, we did this and we did this. Right. And it's like, maybe we aren't as boring as we think.
Well, it's mainly our fathers and mothers had very, very interesting
So we actually started
stories
from the very beginning of, like, from birth to when we met.
And we got as far as when we met. We didn't. There may be a volume 2, folks, and even a volume 3, because we only got up to where we met.
Yeah.
That's what I noticed, is that the book stops when you two meet, and I was like, whoa. Now I want to ask you, you two grew up, you didn't know each other as kids.
Nope.
You were in Yorkshire, Gary.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And you were in Chicago, Val. Or edge of Chicago
for about my first 5 years.
First 5 years. A Cub fan or White Sox fan? The whole interview depends. Oh, yeah. Good. I was going to say the whole interview depends on your answer. Okay, no. Me too. I'm a Cubs fan, and I'm never going to forgive the Pope for being a White Sox fan. But anyway,
there you go. Yeah.
Now, but let's talk about that for a second. How did you two? The way you two met was through a message board, correct?
Yes.
Right. A very modern way for someone who lived through non-modernness, if that makes sense.
Well, we were, I guess, right in the middle. Right in the middle of the time when everything, like writing letters to people, that's kind of all stopped. And the way you get messages out to people now is a text, a message, a private message, or just whatever. I haven't written a letter in about 20 years.
No,
like a real letter.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got into the internet, I guess, right at the start. Not right at the start, but we were still on, I think, Windows 98 or Windows 2000 or something like that. And it was different in those days. You could chat to each other, of course, but not in the way people do now. You could never do this.
Yeah, I mean, that was unheard of.
We were both Paul McCartney fans who were into computers, I guess, at that time. And we joined the forum. Little did we know, where it would lead.
Yeah. It was just a plain old Paul McCartney forum for fans. And I loved it because I was going to the,
2007, I think.
2007 concert, Chaos and Creation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the reason I joined was because I was going to that concert. So I thought, I'll join up and find out a little bit about everything that's going on and all. And I met a girl on there, and she said, you've got to see this online band that's playing in another section of the Paul McCartney fandom board. And I thought, okay. And about 3 months later, I finally went on, and I thought, wow, that one guy sounds exactly like John Lennon. Is it John Lennon? And I could not suss that one out in my head. And so I listened to it a few times, and I thought, they're really good. And they're from all over the world. There was one from Sweden, Gary from England. There was Phil from Italy, and there was Brian from Canada. So it was an online band. It was an
online band that...
yeah.
So let me ask you, now I don't play an instrument well at all. Okay. I'm not going to pretend I am a musician or in any sense of the word, but Beatles songs, especially their later songs, they were not easy to play, were they?
No, they weren't. That is one thing I mentioned in the book, that when I learned guitar as a kid of about 14, between 10 and 14, I started to learn. And I used to do I started with the old rock and roll stuff, 3 chords and stuff like that. And I found I could pick it up a little bit from the records, the old rock standards. Cliff Richard was a big popular entertainer in the UK at that time. And I liked his songs, and I liked Hank Marvin, who was my first guitar god. And I thought, well, I'm only 10, but I'm trying to, I can do that a little bit. And then when I got into the Beatles, I just had to stop, because then, even if there's only 3 chords, there's harmonics on top of that and harmonies and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And when we got to Strawberry Fields, and your diminished chords and your augmented chords and all this sort of thing, it was like, okay, I need a book now.
Yeah.
And as someone once said, I can't remember, it's one of my friends, and he said, the Beatles are the finest musical education a young guy can ever have.
Val, what's your favorite Beatles song?
Eleanor Rigby.
Eleanor Rigby.
Right in there.
No, I love all their songs, but you know what? Every time somebody asks me that, that's the first song that comes to my mind. So I have to say Eleanor Rigby, and I don't know why. I love that song.
Yeah, Gary, how about you?
I was hoping you wouldn't ask that question, to be honest. I knew you were going to. Well, you see, it varies from month to month. That's the problem. I like Here, There, and Everywhere.
That's beautiful.
Is I think a real favorite. But the one that always goes through my mind, and this is in the book as well, is This Boy. When I Want to Hold Your Hand came out in January, and my 5-year-old cousin played me the flip side, I was blown away with This Boy.
Oh, yeah.
So with the harmonies and the 3-part and all that. And I completely turned at that point and bought all their albums and everything. Oh, my parents.
Val, when you mentioned that was what a lot of people would say when the Beatles first came out, I was 3 years old. One of my earliest memories in 1963 was this radio station called Wave, WAVE, in Louisville, Kentucky, played She Loves You.
Yeah.
A new band called the Beatles. So they played it, And after it was over, the DJ comes on and goes, well, it's a hit over there. I don't know if it'll do anything over here, though.
Oh, it did.
Yeah, you see. And,
the sad thing is that during Beatlemania, I don't know what was wrong with me. I didn't even know the Beatles until they broke up. And so I had a lot of backtracking to do. And the good thing is that all the albums were already out. So my friend and I used to go to like flea markets and places like that just to get old Beatles albums, because in 71, the Beatles, you could find nothing on them.
No, they were old hat at that time.
No, they were like, okay, like tearing down the cavern. They were nothing.
Yeah.
So I just had to look I looked everywhere.
Well, you fell in love with Paul McCartney first, didn't you? As a Wing.
I didn't know he was a Beatle. I thought, oh, Paul McCartney and Wings. I like silly love songs and I love Let 'Em In. Mm-hmm. And I was in Arizona visiting. We were visiting our family in Arizona after they moved from Chicago to Arizona. And we were all sitting around watching TV. And I asked everyone, who are they? Because it was a documentary of the Beatles.
Yeah.
And my mom was the first, and she said, those are the Beatles. And I said, that one looks like a band called Wings, that one guy. And she said, well, yeah, he's Paul McCartney. And I'm like, light bulb. You're kidding. You're serious. That was Paul McCartney was one of them. One of the, because the Screaming Girls got me. And then the entire documentary said, it changed the way, because America was down with the Kennedys. We were a country, I guess, lost is what the documentary was putting across to me.
Right.
And I thought, wow, the band I love, Wings, the lead singer of Wings was actually a Beatle. And so it all kind of came together when I was about 15.
See, that was also similar to the play Beatlemania. I don't know if y'all saw that one.
I went to see it in 1978 or 79.
Me too.
In London, was it?
Yeah. You saw it in London?
No, it was actually I saw Rocky Horror in London.
Okay.
No, but the Beatlemania, it was called. And my friend and all of my mom and her friends from work, we all went. And it was like real Beatlemania. I think we all thought those were the Beatles up there. And we were all like scrambling to the front, and we were screaming and yelling just like at a real Beatles concert. So I can only imagine how I would have acted at a real Beatles concert. It would have been nuts.
What do y'all think about the newest song? I guess you would call it the last Beatles song, Now and Then.
Now and Then.
Beautiful. I thought it was personally. I thought it was beautiful, but
it was touching, beautiful. It made me cry.
I know. Has some of the family of the Beatles reached out to you?
Angie McCartney.
Angie McCartney was the stepmother of Paul.
Married Paul's dad in 1964.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was that early on.
So, they know each other well. And Ruth, who we spoke to, who reached out, was a child. And Paul used to throw around. And,
that was his stepsister. Kids,
and she was his stepsister.
I actually did ask Angie, would it be okay for us to use your words? It was a private message.
It was a private message.
And I said, would it be okay for us to use your words? And she said, yeah, I'm going to be keeping my eye on you guys. Yes, because absolutely.
We want you to succeed.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And you know what? I was so touched because she said, I'm turning 96 in November, I hope. And I thought, oh God, I hope so too.
But Mary Hopkin might be the closest to Paul McCartney that's reached out so far, because he did write her song Goodbye. He produced and did everything for Those Were the Days. And she was the first artist signed to Apple Records when the Beatles launched that in 1968. And it was Paul who signed it. But that's the closest. But there's a lot of Beatle people around that have contacted us. Yeah.
Well, the authors' names are Gary and Valerie Morrison, and the book is Shadows of the Beatles. It's out now. So I hope everybody, you can go on their website, shadowsofthebeatles.com. That's right. So, and you can go to Amazon or bn.com and pick it up.
Is it?
There it is.
And of course, there's much more. There's much.
We both have one.
Yeah, there's much more to it as well, because my mom met JFK.
That's right. We didn't even get to that. Yeah, I know.
She met JFK, and there's a whole host of celebrities that Val's been involved with too.
It's all in the book.
So there's a bit of that, and I
worked at TV stations, so I met a lot of people.
Yeah,
and I've got the most vivid memory, which I detail in, I think it's chapter 12 or 13 in the book, when there was a culmination of things happen when JFK got shot. It was the same day as the second Beatle album was released.
Yes.
And it was the same day the very first episode of Doctor Who was shown.
That's what I was going to say, Doctor Who, because...
right,
because
which you've interviewed recently, haven't you, I think? Being in the store when that happened, and it flashed on 50, 60 TVs. And because my mum had briefly met him, which is incredible, she was absolutely heartbroken. And I'm saying, but I want a record. I want the new Beatle record. And it's like, no, come home, son. Not today. And I want to watch Doctor Who tonight. Well, they've cancelled it.
Not tomorrow. No, it's
fascinating.
But it is. Well, Gary and Valerie Morrison, thank you for being on Lights, Camera, Author today.